Hello and welcome to today's session. I hope you're all doing wonderfully well from whichever part of the world you are watching. We can definitely see springs in the air, and I have only got 10 more days for the marathon, 28th of April. I run the Madrid Marathon, and I love the spring here, but I just hope that for the 28th of April, all the clouds come together. We have a lovely overcast day. The temperatures go down at least 7 or 8 degrees, and then they can go back up on the 29th. This weather is great for sitting out in the terrace and having a lovely glass of wine, but it isn't fun for running 4 or 5 hours. So I really do hope that on the 28th, the temperatures go down slightly and we have a nice overcast day. And coming back to today's subject, today I would like to talk about that invisible crystal ceiling that looms over majority of us wellness leaders. So today I'd like to address the elephant in the room. Now, I have talked about this subject before in an indirect way in the podcast, in my podcast, and also here on LinkedIn. And when I was in London speaking at the Spa and Wellness Convention, Rebecca Doyle brought up the subject of how less than 1% of wellness leaders actually make it to GM level. And she had addressed this question to two leaders, one from the hospitality industry and one from the wellness industries, both amazing professionals who have done amazing work for the industry. And it was interesting to see that they too were lost for words, that why so few wellness leaders actually have this clear career path to GM. There simply wasn't a straightforward response to that. And, coupled with the fact that less than 1% of wellness leaders make it to GM, I'd also like to talk about the subject I talked about last week, where what does it mean to be a good wellness leader? And there is this kind of image that we have created ourselves. And I think we're co creators of everything. So we're not the victims here, but we have created this image of wellness leaders being good at wellness. So we're fantastic at our craft. We're great therapists, practitioners. We're soft. We're sweet. We're so connected to our feelings and we're just connected to well being in general. So just because we are good at our craft, we are kind of compartmentalized as a person who definitely will have no interest in business or developing a business acumen or even being strong business leaders, apart from also being very good at our craft. And today, what I'd like to talk is about how these two realities contribute to this invisible crystal ceiling or glass ceiling, if we want to talk about that, in our industry. And while I was preparing for today, I was like, how come, we have this invisible crystal ceiling? How is it that, or rather, even why is it that we wellness leaders have such a short lived career in hotels? And the irony of it all is that we choose wellness because it's our vocation. We love this industry, we're passionate about it, and we just want to do it in hospitality. But the ceiling is so low that once we have worked our way up, become strong leaders of our own right, then if we want to progress further, we either have to jump ship, change locations, or completely leave the industry and set up on our own or work for another industry, still within the guardrails of wellness, but we don't have these opportunities available to us. So I'd like to delve into these two reasons why I see we have the ceiling set so low. The first one is how only less than 1% of wellness leaders actually make it to GM. Now, I remember in this 22 years I've been in this industry, as I was climbing up the ranks, became the wellness director, became a regional role, in some cases a global role. Then I went back to property role. I've had so many roles, but it's always been the sandbox has been so incredibly small. And there was never, ever really a possibility for a wellness leader to be put on a fast track or on a track to become GM. And that is purely because we're considered this specialist function. And within this specialist function, it seems to be incompatible to want to be ambitious. It seems incompatible to want to go up the ranks. It also seems incongruent. How can you want to be in wellness if you also want to progress and probably take on a more generalist role? So that has been one of the causes of why the ceiling has been so low. If there are only so many regional positions our wellness leaders can take, and obviously we know these are just regional positions, just we're paying lip service to the word region because at the end of the day, they have zero power over what a GM in another property decides or what the owner of the property decides. So the more just they're a namesake to just probably help implement brand standards, but grow and evolve, that role becomes incredibly limited. And the globals are even fewer and far-fetched. Things are changing, but if you still see the number of global F&B directors or global people in culture, you find the number that of global well-being vice presidents, chief well-being officers, even regional, you find that they're very, very small. I mean, I could probably count them in a hand, on one hand. And that is one of the reasons why we have been, we reach a dead end at one point, and that possibility to be more has never, ever been offered. And one of the reasons is because we're specialists and it is incompatible to be well-being oriented and also want to take on a more generalist role. And the other reason was our wellness managers, so previous spa managers, are people who have worked up the ranks, either from a therapist position, attendant position, a receptionist position. They've been more responsible, more keen, they've learned the business, and they know operations really, really well. And they do a fantastic job. But rarely are they given the training to take on that manager role. So the word wellness manager or word wellness leader, if you look at the skills they have, it's just basically a decorative position, the word manager. Yes, they're managing the day-to-day operations, but they're not managing the business per se. Now, hence, the argument is that wellness leaders, if we just look at their trajectory and the fact that they haven't been trained on to take probably a more business oriented role, what the end result is that wellness tends to represent 1 to 3% of total hotel revenue, and majority of that revenue seems to come from spa. So if our wellness leaders are already suffering managing 1 to 3% of total hotel revenue, how could they possibly be equipped to manage a business as complex as a hotel that is generating 100 times more revenue and probably at least 10 to 20 times more staff to look after? So if we look at both those arguments that wellness leaders are specialist leaders, it's really not compatible with them to take on a more generalist function. And if we look at wellness managers, I mean, they're already overwhelmed with what they're managing as a 1 to 3% of total hotel revenue. How possibly then could they get to that 100% of total revenue, and how could they actually manage that? And what ends up happening when we're talking about the crystal ceiling is, as an industry, just to to kind of put it in a way that we can all understand, we end up just focusing on the symptom because we haven't been given the possibility, that marked path, that we can actually aim for the same thing as our fellow leaders of food and beverage and rooms division have, if we're not given, we don't have that as a possibility. And on top of that, we are only a tiny part of the Turtle Hotel in the big picture. It's only normal that our wellness leaders feel that wellness is the most neglected department, that wellness is that bit player, that they have to fight 10 times harder in order to get the budget they need just to cover brand standards. So the reality we live as wellness leaders, of being that most neglected department, of being the lowest paid specialist leader, of being that kind of lone mini GM that no one understands, in a department that definitely no one understands. The downside of that is we try to fix those symptoms. We try to say, okay, we need to get a GM who understands wellness, or we need to give all our wellness managers a seat at the big table. And yes, those things are needed. But again, we are only touching the symptom. We are not touching the root cause. Now, if we got our wellness leaders and told them, you have the possibility one day, if you work for it and if you want it, to get to the GM. And here is the path you need to take in order to get there. If that was a real possibility available to every single wellness leader, in the same way that is available to directors of food and beverage and directors of room division and the other directors, then we would see that we are training our wellness leaders to think in a very different way. And I can assure you, if we know we have that possibility, if we know we have that path, we will know that we can also represent more than 1 to 3% of Turtle Hotel revenue. But if we are not given that path, if we don't have wellness leaders who are strong enough to one day take on that GM position, wellness is always going to make 1 to 3% of Turtle Hotel revenue. Because clearly, when we're at the bottom of the pyramid, it is very difficult to have any impact. We need to be at the top. We need to be the ones making the decisions. But clearly, we need to have the skill set in order to make those decisions. And the way I see it is tomorrow's hospitality leader is incredibly wellness oriented. They understand the wellness business. Then they believe in wellness. And they also know the wellness business, the ins and outs of the wellness business. Hence, it's only fair to say that tomorrow's hospitality leader is today's wellness leader. We are at our infancy stage to become that future leader of hospitality. Because once we reach a position where we can make genuine impact, only then will we see that 1 to 3% needle move to 40 or 50%. But until then, it's very difficult for us to get there. If we are not given that opportunity, if we are not upskilled to get to that place, it's very, very difficult to change what we're living. Sure, we can ask for a GM who believes in wellness. Sure, we can get that seat at the big table. But if we're not touching, if we're not actually treating the root cause, it's very, very difficult for us to make any genuine impact. And what will end up happening is we will continue to have that glass ceiling put so incredibly low. And it is a shame because we have amazing wellness leaders in our industry. In the 22 years I have been here, I have had the privilege of working alongside really talented professionals. And it has been sad to see how they have had to leave the industry, and an industry they really, really love. So it's wellness and hospitality together. But they've had to venture out on their own, wellness with perhaps another industry. And if we don't address this elephant in the room. If you wellness leaders watching me aren't putting your hand up, aren't requesting that path forward to GM, we really won't change the way things are done. It is very, very, very difficult to get to 40 or 50% of Turtle Hotel revenue when we have zero impact on any decision. We can be given the seat at the table, as I always say it, but with that comes a responsibility. We need to know what to do with that voice. And unfortunately, we don't know what we don't know. If we're only generating 1 to 3%, it is very difficult for our minds to even envisage what generating 40 to 50% would look like. And the only way we can do that is by growing. The only way we can do that is by taking on that generalist function. And the future of hospitality has wellness threaded into its fabric. It's already happening. I can assure you, many hospitality leaders of tomorrow will be forced to know wellness. Now, what better way for us to carve our own path than be that leader, that tomorrow's hospitality leader? But first, we have to mark ourselves that path. We have to know that possibility exists. And we have to kind of break past this image we've created for ourselves that we just have to be good at wellness. Of course, we have to be good at wellness. That's a given. As I said that last week, we're not doing anything great there. I mean, that's a given. We need to be amazing at our craft. And we also have to be amazing at business. And this is why I created the free mini course, From Neglected to Respected. And this is specifically for you wellness leaders who want to change the way things are done. And that change starts from us. I have created a series of 7 short videos where I go through that reality check. I go through the wellness value iceberg. And I also talk about our mindset pyramid, because change only happens when we want that change. It won't happen externally. And I strongly recommend for those of you who want to make that change, sign up for the mini course. I'll be sharing the link to the mini course in the comment section afterwards. But yes, today I just wanted to jump on and talk, address the elephant in the room. You know, we don't need to have this crystal ceiling set so low. I mean, we have set it ourselves this low. We do have the possibility to be hotel GM. And at that place, we could make huge impact. And I know of a couple of wellness leaders who've gone ahead to be absolutely amazing GMs. So if they can do it, we can also do it. You can also do it. But that starts first with shifting your mindset. And you can do that by watching my free mini course, From Neglected to Respected. Wishing you all a beautiful day ahead. Take care now.